everyone, and welcome to this month's Newcastle Discover, the latest in our Discover series. My name's Lily Moore, Alumni Engagement Manager here at Newcastle University, and I'll be the host for today's event. The Newcastle Discover series is brought to you by our Newcastle University's Alumni Engagement team and aims to encourage lifelong learning through thought-provoking and insightful events on the latest in university research and practical life skills sessions. Our Newcastle Discover programme for this year is aligned to our NCL in Action theme, exploring AI's impact on our world. This is our year-long programme of events and volunteering opportunities that are designed to help you explore the ways in which AI and future technologies could potentially change our lives and the way we work. In the Discover events, expect to dive into the university's cutting-edge research into AI and future tech across disciplines and industries, as well as how AI and technology can support us in our everyday lives. Before we dive into today's session, a couple of housekeeping bits and bobs. I'd like to let you all know that this event is being recorded and it will be made available to watch later via our Newcastle Alumni YouTube channel. So, moving on to today's content, online security in 2024. Learning how to protect yourself online. We are absolutely delighted to be joined by Debra Cairns, Managing Director of Net Defence today, who's going to cover a session around three sort of key areas in cybersecurity. So a general introduction into cybersecurity and cyber risk, immediate recommended actions, and there is 5 key areas that Debra's going to touch on today, including backup and recovery, cyber attacks, smartphone and tablet protection, passwords, and phishing attacks. And Debra's going to also focus a lot on passwords, an element of cybersecurity that impacts everyone, and highlight the best practices as well as what to avoid when selecting passwords for business and for personal use. A little bit about Debra. So before joining Net Defence, Debra worked for multinational consumer goods corporation P&G, gaining over 19 years of finance and IT experience that has brought her to her current role. From 2018 onwards, Debra has worked in Net Defence and in 2020 stepped into the role as Managing Director, building a team of skilled professionals focusing on what is right for the business and the client and keeping resilience front of mind. Debra is passionate about simplifying cybersecurity to educate businesses on best practices and emerging threats, ensuring support is affordable, attainable, and available for all. So without further ado, Debra, I'm going to hand straight over to you.
Thanks, Lily. So as Lily said, I'm the Managing Director of Net Defence. We focus on telephony, cybersecurity and resilience, which we're going to focus on today, and also MSP IT support as well. I am a huge ardent fan of STEM, so I'm not going to not miss an opportunity to plug it. I'm a huge supporter of STEM. In my prior life, I was an accountant, so I was a STEM for maths, for the M, and now do it for technology. If you want to really give back to your community in any of the 4 areas that STEM covers, it's a really great programme. It's a really good opportunity to help others to pursue careers in those areas. I'm also a Cyber First ambassador, and we're always looking for new ambassadors. It's part of the National Cybersecurity Scheme. We go into schools within your region, within your area, and help to facilitate cybersecurity and resilience in our education sector. I'm also on the board of North East Business Resilience Centre. It's a police-led, not-for-profit organisation, and it really provides great support to SME organisations, free of charge. So I'd encourage you all to sign up and take a look at that. We send out the notes after today. Lily's going to share some links on that. So as Lily said, today I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about kind of what cyber is, cyber risks, some immediate recommended actions. Also added a bonus slot in, which is Black Friday and Cyber Monday, because we're about to get into that silly season, and then a chunk on passwords. So straight in with kind of what is cyber. It's weird that a few years ago was very new to us, whereas these days it's almost at the point of information overload. They're popping the word cyber in front of security, crime, threat, attack, and so on and so forth. So what really is cyber? In its simplest forms, it is anything that we do on a device that's connected to the internet, whether we're doing it at home or at work. That is really what would encompass all things cyber. Cybersecurity is looking at precautions that we take to protect our information, whether that be business or personal, from unauthorized access, and it's using through any device. Newer to the industry is about cyber resilience. The government definition of cyber resilience is the ability for an organisation to be prepared for, respond to and recover from a cyber attack or a cyber security breach. And it's really about protecting your ability to continue to operate should the worst happen. With so much information available, it is very difficult to know what you need and which solution is best for your business. The core principle that you need to always have in mind is about prevent, detect, and respond. So if you're looking to invest in anything from a cybersecurity point of view, focus on these areas. So looking at what a cyber attack is, it's a malicious attempt to access your business or your personal computer, mobile phone, gaming system, any device that's connected to the internet or Bluetooth connected device. There are an absolute ton of different types of cyber attack, but I'm going to kind of talk to you about one or two today. Malware, that's a file or a code that infects your infrastructure, and it can do and perform any action that the attacker wants to see happen. Phishing, I think we're probably all quite familiar with that by now. It's a social engineering-based attack, primarily to either steal your login and credential information and or your financial information. Spear phishing, a little bit newer, but where phishing is a wide net trying to catch as many as possible. Spear phishing is a targeted attack against an individual. So the criminal will spend a little bit of time getting some information from open source, so your social media, company's house, tax, HMRC, to get some information and make that more targeted. And it's more likely to be successful because it's going to feel familiar. It's going to feel like it's about you. There's some real technical ones, which is an SQL injection attack. And this is where a website has been infiltrated and they've put some code in there to be able to extract and collect your information from that website. Denial of service, that's where they will take control of a website and push so much request for information from that website, the website will just fail and it will you're not able to access that. So prevalent in a few years ago when they did it to Xbox just around Christmas, so none of our kids could access their Xbox because the website that was needed was compromised and brought down. Business email compromise, this is where we have a genuine email account that an attacker has control of and will use that to maliciously attack others. And then credential reuse, which we'll talk a little bit about when we get on passwords, but that really is about taking one email address and one password attached to one account and then scanning the internet to see where else you've used that password and using that information to gain wider access. Cyber risk itself is no different to any other risk that we live with. So I think we're all familiar with health and safety risk, financial risk. Cyber risk is just another area you need to consider for your business. And it's the chance of business information being exposed or loss of access to your IT and communication systems. Before you really begin to address cyber risk, the industry standards that we use to assess our IT infrastructure is the CIA triad, and that is looking at the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of your systems and what you are using. Confidentiality is protecting it from unauthorized access and change. Availability means you can get into that system when you want to get into that system, and integrity is making sure nothing is deleted, changed, or removed from that. So wherever looking at cyber risk, it's always going to fall back into the CIA triad. Getting involved in a little bit more from immediate recommended action. So whenever I'm asked to speak or present a webinar, people always want to know, what can I do today? What can I go look at today? And a lot of these are relevant as to your personal life as well as your business life. And by going back and asking these questions, you're really making sure that you're taking some really great steps, but it could immediately strengthen your posture as far as cyber risk is concerned. First one is back up your information and data, whether that is your iPhone or whether that is your company server. That is protecting the information that's the most important to you. You'll need that to restore your data, and it's not just from a cyber attack. The same would be true if you had a fire, a flood, a theft, or damage of that device. Being able to get that information and restore from that information is key to your ability to continue. You need to identify what information you care about. How often you change that information will then drive how often you back up that information. It's important that you keep your backups separate, both physically or digitally, depending on how you're backing that up, away from your IT systems. Consider the cloud. What that means is if someone attacks you, to say a ransomware attack, they're going to encrypt your data. If your backup is sitting alongside your live data, they will be able to encrypt that backup, stopping you from being able to restore from that backup. So it's really important that you keep the two separate. And then finally, it is about testing your backup. I'm sure that over years, we've all got a new mobile phone. As I have, you go to set up your new phone from the backup of your old device, only to find out that the backup is corrupted. So while it looked like it backed it up and it was all great and we've done all the right things, you need to restore from it. It tells you that that file is corrupted. So making sure that when that backup is taken of your systems, it truly is there. From a business point of view, we would always say test your backup to make sure you can recover from it. Most systems will allow you to do the preparation of a recover without having to do the actual recovery, but it's going to give you that additional assurance that if you needed it, that backup is there. And honestly, apart from paying the ransom, which in a lot of cases is not just frowned upon, but illegal. We have sanctions in places with countries like Russia that stop us from being able to pay to get that data back. But it is your only other way of being able to continue to operate after a ransomware or a data theft-based attack. Really, backup should be part of your everyday life. Make sure all of your key devices have a backup, your email accounts, your Google Photos, wherever you're storing things that are either sentimental or really important to you and your business, make sure they're included in your backup. The next is a little obvious. We need to protect from cyber attacks. There are many attacks, as I talked to a few before, but there are some simple checks that you can do that will reduce the likelihood of an attack being successful. So install and please check that you have turned on your antivirus software. We see so many where they've got it, they've purchased it, they've installed it, but they failed to turn it on, in which case you're kind of leaving that door wide open. Prevent trustees, volunteers, staff from downloading dodgy apps. Protect it so it requires someone with technical understanding, whether that be your IT company or a friend who's a bit more IT knowledgeable, and protect it from. And that goes with children as well. You know, we give them devices, make sure there's some locks in place that stop them from downloading these dodgy apps. Keep all of your IT equipment and software up to date. Back in the day, Apple used to say, do the iOS update, we'll give you some new smiley emojis, we'll make this look pretty, you can choose some colors. In reality, even when those messages were coming through, it was a security vulnerability, they were also patching. Apple have changed their tack now. They are telling us, do this update because we found a vulnerability. And I think that in itself tells the change in attitude of users of devices that we now see this as being important, whereas before it was much more about the end user experience and getting people to do that. It's critical that you do your operating system updates as soon as they come out. They don't do it for fun. They're annoying. They tend to come at the worst time when we're busy, we need the device, so we defer it and we delay it. Every minute and day that you delay that by, you're exposing your device to a vulnerability. Control how USB drives and memory cards can be used. There was a simulated social engineering attack done in a Premier League football ground about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And what they did was they dropped USB drives branded with the football team and scattered them all over the training ground, the main ground, the stands, to see what would happen. And when that device was plugged in, it notified the cyber team who had done it and what they'd done with it. It was almost 100% of them were plugged in to see. And it's because we're a little bit nosy, but also we're very trusting. And when something is branded that way, we believe that we can trust that source. So be careful when you're saying USB drives, memory cards. If you find something, hand it into your IT department, or better still, just put it in the bin to be safe. Switch on your firewall. Again, we see a lot of firewalls in the businesses where they purchase one, they're not cheap, but then we find they just haven't turned the controls on. And that firewall really is your protection from the outside world coming into your organization. Keeping smartphones and tablets safe. You know, everybody has a smartphone these days. And what we're not very good at is making sure we're keeping them safe and secure. With agile and remote working being a way of life these days, means we are ever more dependent on these mobile devices. But we sometimes forget to look at the security on these devices, and we fail to keep them safe. Couple of tips: switch on your password protection, make sure it's 6, not 4. There's a reason it's been moved up to 6. It's harder to guess 6 numbers than it is to guess 4. Make sure lost or stolen devices can be tracked, locked and remote wiped where possible. Keep all your device and your apps up to date. So not just your iOS update, but all of the apps that you're using on that telephone and on that mobile device, because that's the provider of that software, making sure they're plugging for any vulnerabilities and gaps they've found. And don't connect to any unknown Wi-Fi hotspots. We see it all the time. We've got no signal, and we absolutely blind trust that we're at Newcastle University, so therefore any Wi-Fi I'm connected to that is named Newcastle University is true, and I can use it. In reality, I can walk into any building, plug in a Wi-Fi hotspot, and call it anything I want to. So just be very careful about what you are connecting to. If you need to do it, do not log on to your internet banking while you're on there. Don't log in anything that's got your financial or sensitive company information. We would recommend, if you do have to work remotely like that, that you are using VPNs so that you're in a secure connection, so that connection to the internet can't be intercepted. Using passwords to protect your data. Can touch a little bit on passwords. I'm not going to go into great detail at this point, but it really is about making sure one of the greatest tools available, but we don't do a great deal to get this right, and we miss an opportunity. Number 5 would be avoiding phishing attacks. So as I mentioned, phishing is very prevalent. It has about an 18% success rate. They send hundreds of thousands of these a day, if not an hour, across the globe. And the whole point of it is really to collect information about you. So it's either going to be information that they can use for a further attack. It's going to be your financial information so they can attack immediately, or they want their login and credential information to be able to get to your sensitive data and information. Spear phishing. So they've done a little bit of research about their target. They're looking to see who they want, and therefore they've done that research. So that email is going to feel more personal, more real, more genuine, and harder to spot. The success rate on one of those types of attacks is about 52% based on the stats we saw last year, and it's increasing. They're prepared to put a little bit of effort in to get it right, and make sure that it feels more genuine to you and you're more likely to engage in it. It's one of the most prevalent types of attack in the UK and has been for the last several years. They tend to look and feel a lot more genuine these days. For those of us that are in the alumni side of the university, we will remember back in the day, they were misspelt, the grammar was terrible in them. It was promising riches from a prince somewhere in the other end of the world if we sent some money. Very easy to spot. These days, they're using AI technology and things like ChatGPT to get the grammar right, to get the slang right, to get the feel and the look of the email right. So it's becoming a lot more difficult for us to spot these emails. So what can a scam look like? An email from a public domain, like Gmail, for example, they're not typically used for business emails. So that in itself could tell you if it's a business one that maybe it's not quite right. Look for a misspelt domain name. So they'll swap out a letter for a number. They'll transpose 2 letters. So it looks like Microsoft.com. Actually, when you look closer, they've swapped a few letters around in that. It can still be poorly written, but as I said, with the coming around of AI engines, they can plug that in and it's going to give them correct all of the previous easy to spot mistakes we would have seen. Messages tend to have a sense of urgency. It relies on unconscious bias to get us to react. So layering up a sense of urgency, do it now or your account will be locked, your bank account's being attacked, do something now. They're going to layer up that level of fear, then start adding other unconscious bias types to that communication. So it could be fake from a celebrity, somebody that's well known and trusted. They can be pretend to be from a trustful source, the universities, police, MPs, the government, anything like that, and it feels like that. It gives us we need to respond. It's from a trusted source. Don't click on a link or open an attachment unless you are 100% sure it's a legitimate email. And you can check that by contacting the source of it from, by the phone, text message. Don't do it through that email. If that email has been compromised, they're going to stop that one as well. But it really is about only clicking open if you're 100% sure it is true and it's genuine. Don't give out your important information unless you absolutely must do. What I would say is that when they're trying to harvest credentials, it will suddenly ask you for your 365 login, for example. Really think that through. Do I need to give this person my login details to get to the information they're trying to provide to me? More often than not, it's exceptionally rare you would need to do that. So think about kind of what you would do. And I would always say, think about if you're standing in front of somebody in the street and they said, hey, I work at your bank. Can I have your login details? And can you just click this link for me? Can you open up this envelope? We would treat that interaction very, very differently in the way that we treat digital interaction. I think we've fallen into this pattern where we receive so many emails a day. We just want to get the email sent back. We want it out of our inbox. We're all working to a 0 emails in our inbox. And that is giving us habits that are allowing these attackers to become more successful. Don't be tempted by the pop-ups. They are pop-ups for a reason. And from that point of view, it very much is, it's another click. It's another clickbait to try and get you to engage and pick that up. Excuse me, I am full of cold today. And then finally, looking at the websites, making sure that little padlock is visible in the right corner, making sure it's an HTTPS, which is telling you that website is secure and it's safe. If in any doubt, just stop. Back check it. If they call you on the phone and tell you it's the bank, hang up the phone and call the bank back. If you've got an email pretending to be your CEO or your email pretending to be the bank, don't engage with that. Find another way of vetting and checking that from your point of view to make sure that it's true. So I'm going to move on a little bit to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, just because it is Black Friday tomorrow. And I've just recently written a blog on this. And I was quite shocked to see some of the findings when I did some research for it. How prevalent is it and why? We all love a bargain, but combine that with the current economic situation that we find ourselves in, finding the perfect Christmas gift at the best price for some people has become an absolute necessity. Also, combined with the volume of those that are online shopping that don't do it on a regular basis, it makes them a much easier target. Between Black Friday in 2023 into the January sales in 2024, UK consumers lost £11 million and the average victim lost £695. This ranged from clothing, high-end tech, but even went as far as cars. It's been revealed by Action Fraud, which is the UK governing body to help prevent fraud and educate. There was 7,168 reports made during that time period. 43 of them referenced it back from a social media platform. So almost 50% of that £11 million that was lost was a purchase or an interaction that started on a social media platform that led to that individual either losing their money or losing more than what they were even trying to purchase from. About 19% mentioned it was an online marketplace, so websites that we're a lot more familiar with. Figures revealed that those aged 30 to 39 reported it most, closely followed by 40 to 49-year-olds, which is my category. I was shocked to see that the average victim is age 42. I expected that to be an older number, if I'm honest. I think we've all fallen into this trap of it's older generations that are having problems with online scams and online security. And in reality, it isn't. It's much younger than I'd considered. So what are the main scams and what is catching people out? As I said, social media deals are the most common, covering about half of that 11 million that was lost. Social media ads and campaigns play again on our unconscious bias to get us to interact and ultimately purchase either directly on that platform or moving from the platform after we've engaged with an individual or what we believe may be a company. They're going to push a limited offer, which will tell us to, you'll never get this deal again, do it now. And they're trying to push us to buy without really taking full consideration about where we're buying it from and any risk involved. Advertising a product that's incredibly scarce, creating that false sense of urgency. There is always at least one toy sells out every year, if not multiple. So pushing that, that's the one toy, I've spent months looking for it, I need to buy it now. You're not really going to consider where you're buying it from and who you're buying it. Using brands and products and sometimes celebrities we already know and trust. So it tells us the scam is genuine and we will move forward with that transaction. Faster ways to pay, Apple Pay, I love it, but it means we can instantly buy. And what they're banking on is that you will instantly make that decision and then that's it, it's done from that point of view. And fake social media accounts, it's not difficult. We see them all the time. We're following an account, we see a fake one spun up. It's happening over and over again. And unfortunately, with the volume of accounts that are being spun up, the social media platforms are just not able to deal with these fake accounts. It relies on us to report them. It's devastating enough to think that you've purchased that dream gift. Ultimately, it doesn't arrive, or when it does arrive, it's absolutely not what we thought it was going to be. However, if the cyber criminal goes on to exploit your credit card or your bank account, you can find yourself in a much more serious position than you could have ever considered. So it really is about just slow down, take your time with it. So what advice do we give? If it doesn't feel right, just stop. Just stop, take breath. You don't want an empty bank account for Christmas, that's for sure. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is. 5% off, 10% off, buy one, get one free? Absolutely not. So just slow down and really think about it. Research the company and the seller, look at reviews on trusted sites like Trustpilot. Break contact and don't click the links. So if you are on a platform and they're pushing links, or you've come off that platform, you maybe find yourself on a WhatsApp or a similar messaging app, just stop, block the number, don't click the links, and then take time to take a look at it. I'd strongly recommend don't buy from social media. Anything that's been pushed on social media should have a genuine website that sits behind it. And they're not only going to just put a deal on Instagram, it's going to be on their main website. Come off that. Don't use the link in the Instagram account. Google the website yourself. That's your second check to make sure, because they will have put a fake website in there if they're trying to get you to engage and buy. I would also strongly recommend turning on two-step verification, which is also sometimes known as multi-factor, two-factor. What it's going to do is it's going to give you an additional password, and anything that has your credit card details, bank details, including the bank and the credit card website, they're mostly turned on those sites already. It's great for Amazon, particularly if your kids have access to your Amazon account. They will no longer be able to purchase without you giving them a second password to be able to access that. So really think about turning it on. It's available on everything these days, from your social media accounts to bank accounts. And it just means you're going to get a code from a different device, so you can control requesting the transaction, and then it's that second step before that money leaves your bank account. And also report it. I know it feels like when you get caught by a scam, you're ashamed and it can lead to embarrassment. And you're like, how could I even do that? You're a victim of a crime, and you need to remember you're a victim of a crime. We wouldn't not report other crimes. Don't make this the one you don't report. The more that we report, the better they can do in finding them, the better they can do in stopping them. And we'll send a link out, but if you Google on Stop Think Fraud, how to stay safe from scams, that is the best source of information and kind of what's happening. So as I promised, I would come back to passwords, because it is the one I get asked the most questions about. Passwords are stuff of nightmare or necessary evil, probably a bit of both. In a digital world, we're asked for passwords everywhere we go. And on a whole, we hate them because they're annoying. And they ask us to do things like, you can't have that one, you've already had that one before. It needs to have 2 special characters, 8 numbers, 6 letters, I need a capital. And they do feel very overwhelming. But if we are absolutely using them to the best, they are the best form of protection. This is a unique series of letters, numbers, characters, words that you have built. And if you built them correctly, they'll be very difficult for a cyber criminal to get into that and guess the password or use technology to try and brute force the password. We use them to protect everything. So whether it's our email, our homes, our social media, our phones, our money, online gaming, it's endless. But the one thing that absolutely protects them if you get it right is your password. And you know what? Passwords are free. So all this technology that costs a ton of money, if you get your password and you implement it correctly, it is one of the best forms of defense from an attack. I'm going to talk you through some common trends and mistakes, and then give you some tips on how to get the best passwords out there. The most common passwords is terrifying from my point of view in the sector that I work in. But when we look at 2023, there was 4.5 million people still using the password 123456. There was 4 million using the password admin with a capital A, which obviously makes that really more secure. It goes on, and in the top 10, they are all versions of the word password, iterations and different combinations of 1 through 9, numerical order, just you can see where it's a 4-character to an 8 to a 10. And we are still seeing the QWERTY keyboard used as well. So those top letters that sit on the top of every keyboard. Terrifying that we are seeing those types of passwords still being used so much. Why are passwords so careful, and why do we need to be so careful with them? Password reuse is one of the easiest ways that cyber criminals get us. So you go onto a website that's not protected, you create an account, it will ask you to use your email address, and then it's going to ask you to generate a password. If you put 123456 in that password, and then that website is compromised, what will happen is they will scan the internet for any other account you have with that email address, and they'll attempt to log in with that password. So if you have reused the same password on everything, if any one of those accounts is compromised, effectively you've given them passwords to everything that you have. It still says around 68% of us are reusing the same passwords everywhere. Think about kind of separating at least some of those passwords out. We're still very much guilty of using personal information, including pet names, children's names, birthdays, dates of birth. It's really not difficult to guess that information, particularly if you are posting those celebrations on social media. It's not difficult for them to go find that base information about you. Default passwords, we still very much see devices being used, and it's the password that was given with that device. The most common is your home broadband. You'll have been given a router, you'll have plugged it in, you'll be using that horrible password that they gave you in the beginning. And the worst of it is that password is sitting somewhere on a spreadsheet on their database of that internet provider. YouTube will guide you very easily on how to change this password. Do it, because if that internet provider is compromised, they've got credentials to everyone's home Wi-Fi. And we're on home Wi-Fi, we think we're safe. By making just that one small step change, it really takes you from an easy target, should it be compromised, and moves you away from that. Letter replacement, we're all switching letters for numbers, capitals. Hackers know this is really common and have developed tools to take common passwords and then swap out O's for zeros, E's for threes, S's for fives, because they know that it's the habit that humans have got into. So avoid doing that. Passwords from patterns, they can look really complicated, but if it's the top row of your keyboard, again, they know, and it's not difficult for them to predict that sequence and break that password. There are several types of password breaches that happen and where they're using it. Using tools to be able to help get into your passwords. Dictionary attacks. So they are looking at all letters and words that are contained in the dictionary, and they're using that to scan and test your passwords and really pushing that. Phishing attacks, talked about, they want your password, not necessarily for what they're asking for. It could be to see whether you've reused it somewhere else. Password spraying. This is where they use the most frequent passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we'll just spray it across the whole internet looking for any matches. Best practice, minimum of 8 characters. Longer is better, but you need a balance in being able to remember it. Random words are the best that have nothing to do with it. No association, no family, no pets. Make sure you use different passwords for different accounts. At least separate work, anything that has your financial information in, and other stuff, so that you're getting some separation. Do you want to go to questions?
We've had a couple of questions so far, which we can jump in that. I wonder on the password side of it though, Deborah, just since we're on that subject, one thing I did notice has been happening a lot to me lately is when you sign up to a new website or something like that, and they give you like a suggested, I don't know if it's your device or if it's the app or whatever, but they give you sort of a suggested strong password, and it's always like complicated. And I just wondered whether that's a good route to go down, or whether you should still go back through and reset once you've created the account.
So they are device generated. So Apple's one of the most common that does it. They are very secure passwords, but they're not great if you're going to log onto that application on another device. Because that password is so long and complicated. I would always say 4 random words is your best. Storing your password on your iPhone or your device is fine, as long as you've updated the device itself.
Yeah, because I know definitely for me, I feel a bit ashamed for some of the things you were saying. I'm definitely guilty of a few of them. So I think, you know, we can all do some homework after today's session if others are feeling the same. We've had a question from Elizabeth and Carol just now about Google Password Manager and Password Manager in general, and whether that's a good thing to use.
They are great, as long as your device has had its updates done on it and you're using the latest version of whatever that might be. So whether it's Google Chrome, your iPhone, it's about protecting the device first. If the app is up to date, they're great. They're brilliant from being able to do it. Just make sure the device themselves protected with a strong password, biometrics turned on, your operating system update is done. You can purchase them. There's nothing wrong with a little black book at home. The criminal would have to break in, find it, use it, and also storing them on a no app on your phone. Just don't call it passwords, and make sure it has a password protection on it. But again, nothing wrong with that, because if you think the layers they would have to go to get their hands on it.
And we've had a couple of other questions, Deborah, around sort of spyware and, you know, things like third-party virus software devices. I wondered if you had any advice around recommended products that, you know, you would suggest people go out and get.
I think if you are going to purchase something, make sure it's a well-known brand. Don't go cheap. Go for the bigger names in the market. They're going to be the better ones that are available. I don't have a defined choice. A lot of what they're doing, it's the same as, they're just branded very differently. Just do your research, buy it from a reputable place, make sure it's a well-known brand name that you're buying, and make sure you've done a little research about what you're actually getting. Some of these, but there's a lot of push right now on social media, on TV, big companies coming to the market and saying, I can protect your device with this, with that. And that's where we see a lot in the cyber world, where it's that magic cure that, you know, have this and everything's perfect. In reality, it's one layered up part of security. From a personal device, it's much more about 2-factor turned on. It's about the device being up to date. It's about backup and recovery, and making sure your passwords, biometrics are all turned on. If you protect the device and every part of the device in the app you're using is bang up to date, and you take care with your email, you're giving yourself the best chance of security. Yes, there are great tools out there, but just be careful you're not buying something you don't need. We see it so much across organizations being sold the magic cure, the silver bullet, and in reality, you could do it just the same for yourself. And from a business point of view, you've got to go and you've got to invest in tech. On a personal level, it's much more about owning your security and protecting the devices and the apps on there, rather than going and spending a ton of money on. I don't have a antivirus on my own personal mobile phone. I do, however, have lots of other things turned on, like two-factor and backups, recovery, all of those things are turned on, because I feel that's the right balance. That's the preventative piece of it.
Yeah. And I wonder if we'll just take one more question, and then Deborah, you can go back for, I don't know how much you've got left.
Yeah, a little bit.
We've got, I was going to say, I'll just ask one more question that we've had so far, because it's actually quite relevant. So Patrick asked earlier in the session, basically, if, say, for example, your email has been compromised and you're kind of made aware of it, what do you do as an individual? As sort of your immediate next steps?
Change your password immediately. Immediately change your password. Because if they've got into your account, then they have your password. And this is where we talk about password reuse, because then you need to work out where else you've used that password. And it is about, and that's why I talk so much about passwords, because they are the keys to our own kingdoms. Immediately change the password. If you clicked on a link, or you've done something, you can run, if it's a laptop device, you can run a virus scan on that. If you have engaged and you have completed a financial transaction, call the bank immediately. Don't fall in the trap that you think they can't help because I was stupid enough to click this, or I was silly enough to do that. Banks have great fraud support these days. They very much treat you as you are the victim of a crime. No different if you were mugged in the street, but we're not reporting it enough. They can do all sorts of things to get that money back. And in a lot of cases, you get all of the money back. They're pushing a new piece of legislation that we're hoping to see come in, hopefully next year. At the moment, two banks go into kind of discussions with each other. You're the sending bank and the criminal is the receiving bank. The two banks will then kind of argue out over whose fault it is. They're trying to bring in a 50-50 split on cybercrime so that the money is kind of given back to the individual immediately, and the banks bear the cost 50-50 from that point of view. Just be vigilant, but report everything. The more information the police have for action, fraud, all of those, the more they can be doing things about it.
Definitely. I'll hand back over to you, and then I wonder if we just start questions at around about sort of 5 minutes left this session, given we've
I've touched on the questions, actually have covered a lot of this. Somebody touched around password storage tools. The only thing that you're doing is that you're putting all your passwords in one place, and if that is compromised, you've effectively given it. But there are great ones out there. Your internet browser, just make sure the app is up to date. Smartphones, I use the one on my Apple phone. It's a great setup, but I've also got lots of controls turned on that iPhone. There are purchase ones like LastPass, Passportal, lots of others, but make sure it's coming from a reputable source. Purchase it from a reputable source if you want to go down that. And I can't stress two-factor and MFA is just, it's mostly free. In fact, you don't need to pay for it as an individual user. I would tell you to invest in two-factor rather than invest in antivirus. If I'm being totally honest, two-factor is going to give you a lot more control. And particularly, you click that link, you go to make the payment, it's going to ask you to open up another app or a messaging app. It slows you down as much as anything. And you also get the warnings if someone's trying to log in under your credentials. It's giving you that pre-warning so you can do something about it. I think that's probably about it, to be honest, from those bits. So if you want to do any more questions that you've got before the session goes.
Yeah, we've got some more. We'll stay on the theme of passwords, I think, because they're still coming in thick and fast. So we've had a question from Bridget just asking how often, I don't know if you've covered this already, so apologies if you have, in terms of how often a password should be changed. Don't know if you have
There's a lot of school of thought that says you have to change it every 90 days. In business, that was always the rule of thumb. A lot of businesses are turning that off now. They've switched to 12 characters long, and make sure it's a strong password. So 4 random words is your best. And they said back in the day, Funky Chicken Disco would take some like 350 years to hack. There are tools where you can put your password in and it will tell you how long it would take to so like check my password, tell you how long it would take to hack that particular password. But 4 random words is your best available from that, because if you've got Funky Chicken Disco, there's no way in the world those 3 words should be put together. Therefore, all the tools the criminals have built for sandwiching commonly used words together it's less likely to show up. That's why it takes them longer to break the password.
And then Aaron's asked around passwords. So basically, what about a biometric password? Is it as good as compared with an alphanumeric password?
Most will ask you to do both.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got biometrics turned on, I mean, Apple was one of the first to go, I think, with, with face rec, thumbprints. Biometrics is great, but there's normally a additional password that sits behind that anyway, because if that was to fail, you wouldn't be able to access the device. You tend to find them working in parallel. So the alphanumeric would back up the biometric. Biometrics is great. On the whole, you'd need a twin or a son or a daughter that looks a lot like you, or a sister that looks a lot like you. It's not 100% because, we see doppelgangers all of the time, but they are pretty safe, but they're still going to require you to put a strong password behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got, sorry, I don't know your full name because you've got your Newcastle Uni login, but we've gotten some good tips added into the chat, which I'm just going to highlight. So for those who are still employees of Newcastle Uni, you have free use of the Keep a Password Manager for personal and work, just for info. So that's really good for any staff on the call. And also a good website for people to use to see if their email address has been involved in a data breach is Have I Been Owned? .com. So enter your email, and if it's found in the data dumps, be sure to change the passwords linked to that email. So yeah, thank you.
We're now seeing devices like Apple phones tell us when the password's been compromised. You get that security notification.
Okay.
I believe the same is on Android devices. It is true. It is real.
Go act.
Go act and do something with that as well. Definitely.
Definitely. And I wondered, I guess, just as well, just sticking on passwords, since it's, I think, definitely the hottest topic. I am personally, I am an autosave girl, so I have too many. When I am good with my passwords, I autosave them. Obviously, like on my device is plural. Is that good practice? Should I not do that? I'm just thinking if, like, say, for example, something happened to that device, it would be pretty easy for someone to access all of that stuff from there.
And it's really about the device security at that point. Anything that you're putting on a device, you need to make sure the device itself is safe and secure. So if you've got a password on and it's a good one, biometrics, you've done the operating system updates, all the security updates on it, and any application that you've put it into is the latest version of that app. You've done all the things to protect the device. Then anything that you put on that device by default is pretty safe and secure. If you lose the device, that's where two-factor comes in. So if you've lost your phone and it's got the biometric on it, but if you could, and a password, if they break that password, but everything on that device has a secondary password on it, they're not going to be able to access any accounts, which is a lot why we've had two-factor in the workplace for a lot longer than we've seen it, in the public world. But if you think about it's like having two keys to the door. One, effectively, they could get their hands on if you lose the device. Your other key's attached to something else. So they're going to have to steal two keys to open one door. Whereas if it's one password, it's one key, one door, and they're in from that point of view.
So cover yourself across all bases is the advice.
But there's absolutely nothing wrong with saving. The only thing I would tell you is if you lose that device and it's saved to that device, you probably lost your password. Because it's only stored to that one place. So more for user experience than it is for security. If you save them all on a laptop and the laptop even gets damaged, recovering it could be quite difficult from that point of view.
We're having a couple of, I'm going to go back to, I guess, virus pop-ups, things like that on your device. So we had an earlier comment from Sammy saying, I read that some websites use, this might not be the same topic actually, so apologies. I read some websites use JavaScript code to exploit CPU resources for Bitcoin mining, and I've started to wonder whether if this might be the case for me. Signs I've noticed include slow on PC, increased fan noise, excessive heat. Could this be a common issue, or is it just my experience?
They're always trying to do smart and clever things. And some of the technical explanation, but I'll be totally honest, is beyond my own knowledge. I think if you think there's something wrong with a device, and you think something isn't right, it is about kind of, taking the backup of the device, wipe it and rebuild it if it's a personal device. If you do have antivirus, then you can scan across that device and make sure it's not something to be ignored. What I will tell you is Windows and Microsoft 365 have recently pushed out a lot of upgrades. So we're seeing great use of the 365 suite of apps, but it is now swallowing the memory of your device. A lot of it is Copilot and ChatGPT and other AI engines that are now being pushed through into the mainstream. We've seen in business devices where 8 gig of RAM was enough. Currently, it's suddenly not enough. And when we've done the investigation, it's the enhancement of 365 that is now swallowing more of the usage of the device, slowing it down, making it so it feels like it's just taken a long time to load. You might find it's the latest stuff that's coming through from 365, and we suspect we're going to see a lot more of that. The devices we give out to our customers is now we've doubled up that memory and that device level, and it's purely coming from 365 updates. So it could be that.
Right, brilliant, thank you. And then I guess the pop-up thing that I was mentioning earlier, basically, if you get a message pop up about a virus on your PC, is it something you should trust?
Close it down.
Close it, yeah.
Just hit that red cross.
Yeah.
If you've got antivirus on your device and you know it's running and it's operating, you can go into that application and ask it to scan. If it's a pop-up on a website, they're going to take a punt and they're going to make it look like one of the big providers in the market. So even if that pop-up matches the app you use for antivirus, don't click there, shut it down, shut the website down, shut everything down, go to your antivirus application, and you can click to say scan, do it from there.
Yeah, I think it's a really good tip. It's something you mentioned earlier as well about if you get sort of phone calls saying they're from a certain provider, and the best advice is to hang up, and then, you know, if you're not sure, ring the actual provider back.
Yeah, I mean, it is all just done with a sense of urgency, fear to drive an action. One of the most recent ones, I get a lot of phone calls from my friends with like, do you think this is a scam, with screenshots and as you would imagine. One was a guy that I know, his dad had paid for a speeding fine in Manchester. He'd never been to Manchester, but because it was from the police, he thought he had to pay it. And it's where they're layering up fear and then using, you know, we all don't want to be in trouble with the police, but they're relying on our reaction to that for us to get, you know, to get that money from us, or that information that they're seeking.
Using sources that we would on a typical day-to-day basis trust without.
We would freak out.
Exactly. Yeah.
An email from the police going, you need to pay this fine. You'd be like, okay, I'll pay it now. Please don't get me in trouble. And that's what they're relying on, that kind of that immediate reaction. So that you're not thinking it through, you're just reacting to what they're putting in front of you. I'd always say treat an email like face to face in the street. If somebody offered you 50 quid for free, you'd be so cynical at that. You'd probably laugh and walk away. Do the same with the email, and start treating some of our digital communication as if it was a stranger in the street.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing advice, and I'm going to end with that on everyone's mind. And just say a huge thank you, Debra. This has been, you're getting lots of positive feedback in the comments. People saying it's been super useful. So yeah, huge thank you for being with us today and taking us through some very, very easy do's and don'ts. And I think everyone's got a bit of homework to go away and sort their passwords out, sort their antivirus software out, and all the rest of it.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, for everyone on the call, thank you for attending. This obviously brings us to the end of today's session. Just a massive thank you to Debra, to all of you who have stayed online with us this afternoon, and lots of thought and future thinking, as I've already mentioned. This is our final Newcastle Discover event for 2024, but don't fear, we will be back in early 2025 with our next session, AI in the Classroom, led by NU academic Tiago Sousa Garcia. He's going to delve into a recent project, the Creativity Engine, which has been led by NU academics and Northeast partners to create AI-driven web app support for young people with their creative writing. So during that event, you'll learn about the project's origins and its development, as well as a broader discussion on the relationship between AI and education, what the possibilities are, the limitations, and the potential dangers. So don't miss that one. You can sign up for that one now via our website, as well as all of our other NCL in Action upcoming events and opportunities. This programme is running all the way through through this academic year, so do get involved with us as much as possible. As always, if you want to get in touch with our alumni engagement team or fellow alumni in the community, please visit our website and get in touch with one of our team. A massive thank you again, just to finish, to Deborah and to everyone else. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we can't wait to see you all at another event very shortly.